For now, in the meantime, what I'd like to do is to move on to our next speaker, and that is Tony Tilbrook. Tony is the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Technology Officer for NNNCo, a leading Australian IoT enterprise provider and LoRaWAN Network Carrier, providing a scalable network service and platform to enable enterprise-grade IoT solutions. He is the strategic lead for the company's development of network services and enterprise data platform. And in his presentation today, Tony will focus on sustainable IoT infrastructure, looking at when is the right time to scale when it comes to your IoT. So I will now hand over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Laura, for the introduction. Very kind. And also, Derek, thank you so much for your input and your insights and your involvement in our presentation today. Look, the things that we want to get into and talk about today is really around taking our network and explaining to you a little bit about NNNCo and where we are in the world today with regards to how we go from really startup mode into production mode. Just a little bit about NNNCo. NNNCo has obviously been around for about 5 years. We are an Australian telecommunications carrier under the Australian Telecommunications Framework. And this has enabled us to really scale our solutions. Not just in Australia, but globally. We just in recent times have lit up a few services in overseas in Europe with another partner. We're now looking to roll out into the United States, other parts of Europe, and certainly further in Australia. And that will add to our soon-to-be almost 500 network points around the country currently. But what we want to focus on here today is primarily around the shift from trial to scale. Now, all of the things that Derek spoke about are 100% correct, 100% true. And in our world, this is about how we enable the cities to move from what's been happening in the past, which is very much around trialing things and testing things, into a more scalable solution. And that means talking around how do we integrate the problems around large numbers of varied devices. 270 of them are already LoRaWAN certified, but of course, there's also many hundreds more which are yet to be certified or are already in existence around the world. How do we integrate the data sources? How do we integrate the many infinite applications, network technologies, and do that in a way that sustains both the internal and external users of these different technologies? So in our view, that has to happen through really a scalable network infrastructure, making sure that the cities, communities, and organizations can leverage scalable service levels in a professional way so that you can be sure your network is being monitored, maintained, looked after. And finally, that you've got some way of delivering, managing, and scaling that data. So just a couple of quick comments around, what is a LoRaWAN network and what is scalable about it. Big comment from Derek around low power usage. Quite clearly, devices in the field which you will want to use to enable your smart city deployments must have low power, low battery power usage. But let's remember, what's important is not just in the device, but it's how the device is being managed across the network. That has a very big impact on the power usage of your devices. Open standards, we talked about that a little bit previously. Carrier service. In our world, we provide a carrier class type of service, which allows us to monitor, maintain, and look after your network for you, to look after the infrastructure in such a way that we can be sustainable into the future with that particular network. Integration elements, interoperability and integration is incredibly important. Otherwise, you won't be able to scale through pure cost restrictions and limitations on getting new systems and platforms implemented into your IoT network. Clearly, scalability, it's a given, except important to recognize that that's a combination of capacity within network server, capacity within the systems, capacity within the data models that you're using, network coverage and so forth. But all of this must be done and underpinned by a global security standard topology, which of course is important around LoRaWAN. Now, very quickly, everybody knows a little bit about community networks, but there is a difference between community and carrier networks. Community networks, extremely important to all of us, and we recognize them and acknowledge their importance in our entire ecosystem. incredibly good for the areas of making sure that we can start up and try things out in the first level. But when you want to start to get an ROI around this stuff, you're going to need some guaranteed end-to-end service levels. You're going to need the ability to protect your assets. So in other words, people can't just turn things off and change things on you. In a carrier class network, you've got network assets which are protected under the telecommunications framework. Other areas like being able to provide services to third-party customers over that network, being able to share that data, carrier class design, and of course, having a carrier or someone who's meeting a certain standard level to maintain and look after the network for you in a way that is fully accountable and resilient. So really quickly, I call this the four pillars architecture. And really from left to right, this is just for people who may not exactly know how this whole thing fits together. I talk about these four pillars holding up, and you'll see above there the sustainable and scalable IoT outcome. You care about outcomes, and the infrastructure is intended to hold up those outcomes. You've got to pick the right devices. You've got to have the right infrastructure network in terms of gateways and deployment and coverage. You've got to have the right network server topology and data management topology. And then you've also got to have what we would call an application layer, which is the bit that you care about the most. That's the bit that you're getting your outcomes on. So how do we do this and how do we help? Our experience has shown us that cities, organizations, communities, governments, and anyone else who wants to play in this space or wants to work in this space need flexible models to deliver their services. Network as a service can be delivered purely as a connectivity play. Network infrastructure partner could mean that now the city is now taking part in the NNNCo national network and actually being part of the revenue share opportunity. Any of these can fit in that world. Carrier class, carrier grade LoRaWAN in a box services, where we provide you with a full kit and service offering for you to go forth and build your own network components, whether it's on a building rooftop, or whether it's under an eave, or whether it's a pico cell going down into the nether regions of a car park or a basement. And finally, of course, network on demand, fully deployed, scalable network designed to a specific use case to cover ubiquitous areas. And we've done all of the above. These are important, all of these, in a flexible technology and deployment methodology to ensure that you get the carrier coverage that you need. So now, just to jump onto scalable service levels, what's super important about this is this. As we move from what I lovingly call playtime to paytime, what I'm getting at there is that you need to be able to ensure that what you're doing is going to meet the use case. Canopy coverage to coverage an entire city, you might get away with 2 or 3 gateways to do an area, which when you get down to the real reality of the use case that you're working on, you need much greater coverage and penetration than that. So therefore, you need some method to achieve 100% coverage with guaranteed service levels of the data. And that's where we can help. We can help again. We can come to bear, and we can actually provide you with the services to give you high availability, monitoring and maintaining and looking after your network, high reliability of data, which enables you to be sure and confident that the data you're receiving, the packet error rates are not getting out of control, that the service levels are being met. And of course, all of this is underpinned by a level of security, which is critical in the deployment of your network. And so just a quick comment about security and how important it is. I want us all to think about security both outside in and inside out. So when we deploy a network that has to be truly scaled, we need to think about how we secure not just the device, the physical of the device, the physical of the gateway, the physicals of the network server and data layer infrastructure and the application layer, but how the communications works between every one of these elements across the board. With a carrier class, what's happening there is you are getting multiple layers of protection. And then finally, outside in, which is an end-to-end encryption, which is standard to the LoRaWAN topology and security architecture. Very important. The third element of building a scalable network is all around what we call a data layer. Now, the complexity of LoRaWAN is specifically trying to bring about large amounts of disparate data to a single location for you to make decisions and to gain knowledge from. The very nature of that means that we are going to have multitude of devices, hopefully, data libraries, private networks, public networks, solutions providers who are bringing you incredible knowledge and skill in their very carefully worked out application layers that they've worked. We're going to be hearing from Wireless Tech Group after myself, and they are a perfect example of these solutions providers who have a great deal of expertise in this space. But how do you inject them into your overall model? Then you've got integration partners who bring to the table the ability to actually integrate that data and the services that you're working on. But how do they do that without costing you a sheer fortune to actually get it done? Then it's the integration of platform providers, AWS, Amaya from Wireless Tech Group, or Azure Systems, or Software AG, or WSP Digital, or any of the other platform providers who come to the market. How do you integrate those, again, without costing you an arm and a leg? And then finally, the enterprise, you, the customer, who needs access to this data. How do you get access to share it and use it? Well, when we started this business, we very quickly realized that just the output of a time series payload was not going to get that outcome. We need a way to harmonize and deliver that data. So we built a platform. That platform, in our case, is called NNNCo, and it's a device and data management aggregation layer. Effectively, it allows you to take the data from any device over multiple networks, deliver them into our system through either a standard interface or over a data proxy service, and then harmonize and normalize that data, and then output it over a REST API. So just taking it one little bit more deeply here, to the left here, you've got a raft of applications which you need to have serviced. They might come into your network or into your service via multiple different technology sources, multiple different networks with multiple different protocols and multiple different inputs. For a customer to be able to do that, they have to build a new one, a new widget for every single one of these. In our case, because this is what we do, we build that data layer in a way that ingests the multiple networks from multiple devices and multiple application layers, brings them into our data layer, harmonizes and normalizes that data, and provides a REST API to our partners or your partner around the platform play. And it's extremely important to understand that the fundamental difference this makes in terms of cost of integration with the sharing of data to yourselves inside and outside your organization, the cost difference makes this a scalable outcome. So just to cap off, 3 layers. We're talking about scalable network infrastructure. We're talking about the ability to provide service levels, and we're also talking about data management. When you combine these 3 elements, what you get is the ability to truly distribute third-party services and internal services as part of the one network infrastructure, but do that in a secure manner. You also get the ability to now open up the infrastructure that you may decide to become a part of in terms of the NNNCo national rollout, and be part of infrastructure to business, enterprise, other organizations, and your citizens in the area that you currently work. Finally, if you choose to be part of that entire area, we can do that in a way that actually returns revenue back to the city, truly making the IoT rollout that you're planning to do scalable and repeatable. And finally, we do that without breaching any privacy or security protocols that you may have concerns of. Security is going to be in IoT a critical element as we move forward. You will see global standards coming out on a monthly basis with updates happening. And by employing a truly scalable network with some form of carrier class and security layer scalability, you will find you will be able to move with that into the future without risk. Going down a separate path, you may well find yourself sort of pushed to the side and unable to meet some of those security protocols as we move forward, but we've got you covered. And the last thing I want to say on this, and then I'll be quiet, is that we're not talking about this maybe in the future, hopefully coming. This is here today. These are some examples of organizations, both infrastructure and enterprise, who are engaged with NNNCo today and are rolling out sustainable, scalable network deployments right across their either LGA, their utility area, an agriculture part of Victoria, and indeed globally with an enterprise customer. And that's about all I've got for you today. So thank you very much for listening, Laura.
Great. Thanks so much, Tony. Some really interesting insights there. And I think the most exciting thing there is, as you say, you're talking about things that are happening right now. And we do have a case study from City of Gold Coast later, which will be really exciting to hear about. So thank you again, Tony.